I'm going to review through a series of frames from the film Bumblebee from 2018, the plot, the characters, and the themes of the film. I'll offer a brief commentary of some of the key points in the series of scenes that we're going to watch today, and then we'll get into the film as we've done in previous weeks. If you still have the participation form where you put down comments on Jules Verne on Tuesday, you should use the back of that page to write down a few comments during the film. You don't have to describe everything you see or comment, offer a comprehensive discussion and analysis of the film. Just try to exercise your intuition, your understanding, your reflection vis-a-vis the scenes that will be shown in class. Of course, this page is listed under week 4. At the beginning of Bumblebee, we're in 1987 in Northern California. We see Charlie Watson, age 18, high schooler, waking up and getting ready to go to school. When Charlie looks at herself in the mirror, what does she see? What can you tell me about the character? What are her ideas about herself? What are her misconceptions about herself? Is she happy at the beginning of the film? And what else have we learned from the scenes from last week? Yes, Mo.
That she doesn't have a lot of autonomy, or I guess she's not able
She doesn't feel empowered.
Yeah.
For sure, right? Yeah. She doesn't have a strong core to center herself and her identity. She's very much dependent on the judgments made by others within her family, at school, or at work. And your name, please?
Sam.
Sam. Yes, go ahead.
She's not happy with her living situation,
Yeah.
her
Not satisfied.
transportation situation.
Yep.
Trying to get out of it, but struggling.
More specifically, if you can add some details, especially for anyone who missed last week's.
Well, she's stuck riding a scooter.
Yes, very
She's
embarrassing.
visiting the junk
Scooter.
shop, trying to gather parts to fix up the Corvette.
Yep.
And then she stumbled upon Bumblebee.
And within her family,
Oh, yeah, so she lives with their mom and her new stepdad. Sort of an outsider then.
she doesn't get the consideration she deserves. And very much like the partially restored Corvette, the project she initiated with her father that is left abandoned, interrupted as a project in the garage, Charlie herself feels that she's a failure because she has not been able to resume that project, but that is symbolic of her inability to make herself into an adult. That's the other project, human project, to transform fully, to be acknowledged as an independent adult within the family, within the community of the school. The film has a very traditional approach to the use of the camera. That is to say, the film is trying to communicate as much as possible with visuals rather than with lines. So, for example, during the first morning, when Charlie enters the kitchen of her house, we see her outside the inner circle of the family. We see her mother happily in a happy relationship with a good man, Charlie's stepfather, but at the same time, she feels outside this circle, and her brother is closer to her parents than she is. Of course, we said There are 4 mornings where we see the character, and morning after morning, she feels slightly more hopeful and eventually more empowered. Even when the circle of the couple opens up to welcome her, you can see from the faces of her parents that she's not accepted or supported, right? That's the kind of visual cues that I was alluding to. Her mother is concerned, her stepfather looks at her as an adolescent or an immature person, right? And that is reflected by the gift that he gives her, a book that invites people to smile more. At work, she works at an amusement park. She's forced to wear an embarrassing uniform, which completes the series of embarrassing accessories, which include, as Sam suggested, a scooter that is not cool at all. Scooters that were more common in the US during that period and extremely common all over Europe. Here again, we see another circle, the circle of the popular kids at home, that she's trying to enter unsuccessfully, and she's embarrassing herself by dropping food and beverages on the chest of the most popular, the most handsome kid at school. Then, the same way that we saw Charlie observing her parents in the kitchen from a distance, in here we have the camera reflecting the point of view of Charlie looking out to some of the popular kids at school. And of course, we find 2 couples, 2 friends, and a soon to become couple. But notice also the cars in the background, which are not just part of the background, again, to give you a visual cue of the importance of this, the vehicles. You have 2 of the characters resting their hands on the trunk of the BMW. And we'll find this BMW later on as the target of a prank orchestrated by Charlie with the help of Memo and Bumblebee B127. One environment where Charlie feels more at ease, it's certainly the junkyard, which is a topical kind of place in these movies, focusing on the interaction between a user or owner and an automobile, because that's where the character works in a positive way on some mechanical devices or technology, but that work also develops the character's personality. Working on the car is paralleled by, is the externalization of the work done on the self, right? And here we have one of the guys at the junkyard, who look at Charlie as an odd kind of 18-year-old, but at the same time have some respect for her, right? Are open to seeing her differently, whereas the rest of the world has already labeled her. In the junkyard, that's where Charlie finds Bumblebee in the shape of a yellow Volkswagen Beetle. And what's important about this, the parallel between this visual and the arc of the 2 characters, is that Charlie finds this dusty old Beetle that doesn't drive and sees value in it. But you can apply the same process and reasoning to Charlie herself. Charlie is desperate to find someone like his father who sees value in her, even though she needs work, right? You can see that very clearly. It's a clear parallel and not too difficult to read. Once again, and this is one of many frames in the film, we see Charlie looking in the mirror, but this time you can see the change. It's not a happy face, But Charlie is open, almost hopeful, has found a way out or a way up, a way out of her critical situation, a way to find empowerment, improve her living conditions, physically, materially, with a car, but also psychologically. And again, you see the same kind of face when she's inside, and she has this kind of astonishment, right? She, again, sees the car as something that the car will become, the same way that people fail to see who Charlie might become and will only acknowledge that at the end of the story. So Charlie works on the car, finally gets out of the junkyard, and this time she's smiling, and it's not a smile that she's faking. It's not a way to mask her true psychological condition. She is truly happy, and we see this as an odd couple. This old car, which is in fact an android from another planet, a sentient droid, and Charlie. And you see some acknowledgement by the people working in the junkyard. At least, as I said, they're not critical, they're open in their evaluation of their friend Charlie. In the garage, once the car is taken home, Charlie and Bumblebee will see each other, and this is, of course, important. There will be the revelation of the technology, which is something that happens later in the film. Very much like in Jules Verne's The Master of the World, the revelation of the technology will come after the first, third, or fourth of the novel. It's a difficult interaction. They have to establish the rules of their engagement, right? They have to know each other. And then the mother comes into the garage, and Charlie is worried that she'll find out, but this establishes visually another reality, another truth, that the relationship between Charlie and Bumblebee is part of her private, her personal world, because an adult has to have a part of their life that is where parents cannot dictate the rules, right? You know that this is the beginning of her independence, keeping this a secret. And of course, they work on building this relationship. And initially, we see Charlie training Bumblebee, because Bumblebee is in a new environment, planet Earth, so has to be educated about the dangers of this environment. And they go for a walk in the woods, where Bumblebee reveals through an hologram his background story, how he had to leave the planet inhabited by his clan called the Autobots to find a place where the surviving bots led by Optimus Prime can find refuge. Once they go back in the garage, Charlie reveals her own background story, her own foundational story, the relationship she had with her father, and how everything got interrupted. The project of the restoration of the Corvette, but also her career as a diver, because that was predicated upon the support of her father. And there is a telling line where her father says, "This is the future Olympian, the future champion," right? Meaning again that the father sees the potential in Charlie. He sees what she can become and supports the process of transformation in a way that neither her mother nor her stepfather can do. So this is the part that we will see today. And this is the parallel creates a parallel with the training that Charlie gave Bumblebee. This time it is Bumblebee's turn to mentor, guide, and support Charlie. Charlie at this point has developed a friendship with Memo, her neighbor, who finally got to not only be seen by Charlie, but he finds out about Bumblebee. So he's admitted into this personal circle, a circle created and maintained by Charlie. So Charlie is growing up as a social person, is not dependent on the popular kids, on their acceptance into that circle. And you see here empowerment and freedom. Of course, it's the car, since Bumblebee is sentient, that is driving, and they go back to the beach. The beach, at the cliff above the beach where Charlie trained Bumblebee, and that's the place where Bumblebee is trying to train Charlie to engage people around her in a different, more independent, more powerful way. Because, of course, Charlie is still shy. And at this point in the situation, in the scene, the popular kid that she's somewhat secretly infatuated with goes for a dive. He wants to jump from the cliff. And the only other person here who knows how to do something like that is Charlie. So this would be her moment in the sun, her moment to shine, be admired, be envied by others, and connect with this secret flame. And you see Bumblebee as a car standing by her. That's the visual cue to the support she's getting. And then, using the door, Bumblebee pushes her ahead because the handsome guy is looking for someone to challenge him to go through this challenge of jumping from the cliff. And she would be perfectly able to do so because earlier we've seen her jumping from a platform doing a high dive. So Bumblebee is saying, you can do this. And keep in mind, diving was one of the ways she connected to her father. And now diving is one of the ways she's connected at a deeper level with Bumblebee B127. And she's looking at Bumblebee because Bumblebee is insisting, right? There is this relationship. The other people cannot understand, but she can. He keeps calling for other challengers. It looks initially like she could pick up this challenge, but eventually she backs up. She doesn't dive. She goes back to the car to find refuge into a place that provides solace and comfort to her. And once again, one of the mean girls of the school comes by her to tease her, right? Because she showed fear, and because it's easy to tease Charlie, her haircut, her car, her clothes. Nothing is really cool about her. And here you see the full group of the mean girl. Memo is outside. Memo hasn't picked up a supportive role in its fullness, right? She's not leaning on Memo as much as she's leaning on Bumblebee at this point. When is it that she will finally dive? At the end of the film, during the final battle between B127 and the evil bots called Decepticons, when Bumblebee is about to die. And there, to save him, Charlie will find the courage to dive, and of course she will emerge an adult. She will emerge a more powerful figure. This is Bumblebee at the end of the film. And the conclusion, of course, Bumblebee has become a hero, has saved the landing place for his clan of Autobot, and it's time for him to rejoin his tribe, his family, so to speak. And the same is true for Charlie. So they have this emotional last encounter and goodbye on this place that you've seen in dozens of films overlooking the Golden Gate. They talk to each other. Once again, they see each other. Right now, when they look at each other, they see the person they've become. They see they've realized each other's potential through their journey. They share the journey they shared, their companionship, their interaction. Bumblebee scans the horizon, looking for another vehicle to transform into, finds a Trans Am, and this is a Camaro, and transforms into that. And of course, this is the visual realization that he himself has a dignity that is higher than just a Volkswagen Beetle, right? And she has this line, oh, all this time you could have been this kind of car. But this is true of Charlie herself. All this time she could have been this strong woman, right? Able to interact with family and friends in a different way. But it took all this time and this journey to get the both of them there. And of course, one last time you see the mirror, and the image you see in the mirror is Charlie standing by herself, fulfilled, satisfied. Of course, the writer creates an intentional double entendre. Objects in the mirror are closer than they appear, emotionally closer, right? They have formed the bond. So Bumblebee rejoin Optimus Prime. This is Optimus Prime in its form of, in its shape of a track, and you can buy a Lego set, an incredible Lego set with Optimus Prime that transforms from track to robot. She goes back to her family, but this time she is welcomed in a different way, as you will see in the scenes. She finds her family respecting her, thanking her, giving her, assigning her a more active role in the family. And the very epilogue, the very last few frames, the epilogue of the film, shows you that the Corvette is being restored, and in a beautiful way. The car was dusty and the picture had a patina, was not shiny at all. But the woman you see driving the Corvette is really somebody who looks more like a woman than a teenager. And you see it in the close-up that follows, right? And you see her alone because she is independent. And the film doesn't send her in the arms of Memo. They don't form a romantic couple at the end because this would have spoiled the arc of the characters. Of course, there is something, there is a connection, but they're not a couple, or not a couple yet. And therefore you see just her, and she's driving through the woods, so she's not worried about being out in the world.